because it is our future. Nicolas Paris.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I'm going to talk about electric vehicles, but specifically about the role electric vehicles will play in the energy transition and how they will make it successful. So I hope everyone has still fresh memories about Christmas dinners, and you might have had a conversation that goes like this: I think my next car will be electric. And immediately your grand uncle is saying back, yeah, but how do you plan to charge it? Because with the blackouts, no nuclear power plant in the future, you will just make the problem worse. So you think you are green, but actually you make things worse. And it's not just Christmas conversations, because recently there's been a study backed by a political party saying, indeed, if we have a massive penetration of electric vehicles, we'll have a problem. And it's a classic argument that there will not be enough electricity, and it's split into three parts. First one is there's just not enough, so we cannot share it. If we want to cover our needs, we need many power plants and many conventional power plants, nuclear, gas. They don't mention coal, which is a good thing already. And even if you have power plants, you will need many, because with all the cars fast charging at the same time, you need to more than double the power park that we have in Belgium. In the end, you will end up with such a ridiculous situation that you need diesel generator to charge the electric car, so don't do that. And I think it's normal to be scary and normal to raise the points in the energy field that comes with electric vehicles. First, because there are a set of fundamental advantages about the electric vehicle. First, of course, is the compact motor, the very high efficiency, very few moving parts, very low need for maintenance and repair, and potentially huge lifetime compared to what we know in the internal combustion engine. Next to that, you have the driver experience. Continuous acceleration, silence, little vibration. Then you have the regenerative braking. I drive a Nissan Leaf and I don't use the brake pedal every day because I just use one pedal, and the regenerative braking make me slow down and stop. Then of course no exhaust pipe and gas, and you all know what goes out of a combustion engine, so you don't have that on the road. But then you come to the energy part. It's a huge battery pack, 60 kilowatt hour, about 400 kilometers, 450, and 6 days of average household consumption. So it's big, it's a lot of energy transported. And you have charging speed, which can be low or high, but you immediately see that it can be a lot compared to what a household can deliver, because it's about 8 kilowatts that you have at home, and you can charge up to 150 kilowatts. So you see immediately that this situation needs to be managed properly. It's important to say that low carbon disruption, the energy sector is not afraid of it. And why? It's because it's been there for 10 years already. So it has already shaken a business model in the utility sector, causing huge losses in capitalization. And basically it's about the prices of power price, which are going down due to the push from renewables. And the business models have started to adapt to this new situation. And it's not just utility, also at Total, the company is getting ready to operate in a low carbon economy. And Lampiris, of course, was one acquisition with a lot of mediatization in Belgium, but it's not the only one. There are many acquisitions to cover all the spectrum of needs of customers in this new economy. And you see, of course, mobility, and one of the latest acquisitions with G2 Mobility, a leader of charging station in France, who is now also present in Belgium. So back to EV, I think it's important that we ask the right question. And the question I think is today on the table, seems to be on the table, is should we go towards electric vehicle? Is that the question? And I think if we look around at this question, we see that it's answered already. If you ask scientists, if you ask NGO like Greenpeace, if you ask big cities around the world, if you ask the European Union, if you ask car manufacturers, we have now clearly an industrial strategy of electrification. And if you ask customers, so the fleets globally, everybody has already answered yes to this question. So I think it's not the right question. The right question is not should we go. The right question for me is how should we go. That's what I want to answer to those doubting electric vehicles. There are many questions who remain open, but it does not mean that we should review our answer to the question should we go towards electric vehicle. It's more a how question. And if you have this mindset, then there are sub-questions that immediately come to mind. Which roadmap, which ambitions, the right to plug. Indeed, if you live in an apartment with high kilometers per year, you have indeed a problem today. So this needs to be addressed. Electricity, we'll talk about it of course later in the presentation. It is also a big challenge to be addressed. And the investment conditions, everybody knows in Belgium that it's something with just too many uncertainties to make a very clear and peaceful decision. And if we have this how mindset, then if we look around the world, we can see that many people have already started to provide good answers, well-thought answers about this question. When you look at China, you have thousands of buses, thousands of electric taxis already running. Norway, last year, 1 car out of 2 had a plug. Last year. California, 500,000 vehicles on the road, and 1/3 powered by renewables. And Netherlands, they have a clear roadmap to achieve zero-emission cars only to be sold by 2030. So we're not alone. It's big questions, but they are already answered in laboratories around the world where we can go for inspiration. Now, taking back this how question about the grid and how to prevent the overload of the grid, it's important indeed to keep in mind that if you have 100,000 EV charging at the same time at 10 kilowatts, it's 1 nuclear reactor that you need on top. Or it's coal, it's the dam. So of course it's a big challenge. I'm not saying it's not a challenge, it's a big challenge. The good news is that vehicles are connected to the internet and the speed can change from 2 to 150. And soon, it will go also the other way around. So the car will be able to charge the houses. So that means that you can have 1 nuclear reactor on top when you need it, if you have the right market mechanism to make that work. And if you see the Craig has calculated that the overall increase of volume in electricity will be about 7% if we have 2 million electric cars on the road, which is not for tomorrow. So it's an increase, but it's quite reasonable. And we actually, with the power capacity today, survive these 2 million vehicles, except for a few hours in the winter. So there, you need rules to prevent electric cars to cause a blackout. But 2 million vehicles, again, it's a lot. We have less than 20,000 today on the road. What they found also is that the storage capacity that we would have with 2 million vehicles, it's multiplied by 10. So suddenly, we have many more large batteries, like Co actually is, that we can tap on to provide flexibility. And as a consequence of that, you can say, how can we use this new piece in the electric system, which is electric vehicle, to make the grid better? And by better, I mean more sustainable and more stable. And you say, okay, at an individual level, if I have an EV, double more or less the consumption of my household, so I have an increased interest to produce myself my power. So that means more intermittent, locally generated power. So that means that you need to manage this intermittency. That means that you have at the household level, more local production, intermittent, but with the electric vehicle, you have also a battery when you can store and you can balance the grid, not only at central level, like Elia is supposed to do, but also at local level, and you can incentivize the household to himself balance his local grid. So, as Total, what can we do in order to support the electrification of fleets and help our customers in this transition? Well, first we can lead by example. That's what we are doing at Lampiris, because we electrify fully our fleet, and we are in the process of doing so completely by 2021. And today, 1 year after the beginning of the plan, it's 25% already of electric vehicles. And also we can provide an all-in offer to our customers. You know that we have a lot of fleet customers with the Total card, and now we can also offer them the all-in solution for the electrification of the fleet at home, at the office, and on the road. It's a threat for business models, and Total knows that very well, of course, but it's also an opportunity. And if you look only at Belgium, it's quite amazing actually to see that we have leaders who can really build this emerging ecosystem around electric vehicles. We have car manufacturers of electric vehicles, we have battery experts, so it's very interesting that if you turn the question into a how question, which opportunity you can find out. And to conclude, I think the idea and what I try to do here is to put a positive spin around the EV story, not just say with sarcasm, yeah, I'm not sure this is going to work, but more say, how can we make it work? And I think anyway it's going to come. And probably not in all segments, but in many segments, I think EV just will be a better value proposition and people will want to buy that and not the alternative. And it will come, I think, very soon. It's a long debate, how long it will take. But I think it's a good news. It's a good news because intermittent renewables have to have flexible consumption in order to work. Because when there's no sun, and when there is no wind, we need a flexibility source in order to keep the grid balanced. But this means that we need to address the challenges that come in the wake of the electrification, and there are many how questions that we need to address collectively. So I think we can do it, but if we face these challenges, and I think it's a motivation that we should all have to build the future in which we all want to live in. And I thank you very much.